The masks fog up the glasses. Some are born into Unitarian Universalism. They spent their growing years knowing they had options. To believe or not to believe, they lived the questions. Unitarian literally means belief in one God, but the universal salvation gave them the freedom to believe in no gods or many gods without fear. With nothing to lose, some never even took the time to choose. The meaningful theological statement is, whatever. Others grew up with a judgmental God who said, believe in me or else. An emotionally manipulating message of damnation. Because I love you, I will eternally destroy you unless you say you love me. I created you in my image, but I wanted you to be ignorant. I was highly offended when you ate from the tree of knowledge. Some people are blessed and some people are damned. My human enforcers will let you know which side you're on. Every human religion has patterns of inclusion and exclusion. Many have run from their family religion before the family kicked them out, or maybe they were kicked out. They never bought what had been taught. They know what they're running from, but they don't know what they're running to. And so long as we're focused on what we're running from, it still has a control of us, because we're always looking over our shoulder. Others grew up with nothing and longed for something, but not something prepackaged, not something that has suspicious expiration dates. They needed something that they could use today for their daily lives. UU minister Angus MacLean wrote a pamphlet entitled, Freedom is Still the Issue. It contains the following words. It has been said that liberal religion is a do-it-yourself kit. But there is a danger that we would make it a kit not only without a blueprint, but without tools or materials. In response, Reverend Richard Gilbert of New York created a curriculum called Building Your Own Theology. In his words, the purpose of this program was and continues to be to provide some tools for building a theology based on the materials of one's individual life experiences. Building Your Own Theology was first published in 1978 and has been revised to keep up with the times. It's the cornerstone of adult religious education in the Unitarian Universalist Association. I understand that Cynthia taught this about 5 years ago. How many here have ever taken this course? I see there are a few that are familiar with it. And so talk with them about what they got out of it. I became a UU minister in 1995, and I've met many congregants at all stages of belief and with all types of belief. Most commonly, people know what they're against, but they have a harder time expressing what they are for. Pardon me. I tell them, I'm glad that you have found the safe harbor of Unitarian Universalism. However, boats are meant to sail and not to stay in harbors, not to hide. Likewise, people are meant to live. We may have come to this harbor of spirituality with our sails tattered and engines worn out. Let us rebuild with better sails and better propulsion that suits the crafts we are sailing. Building your own theology is an opportunity to build strength. We learn our individual purposes and live with intention. We stop running from the storms of life. We stop resisting the courses that others have charted for us. No longer will we be reactive, buffeted about by the winds of change. We will be proactive. We can chart our own course, choose our own destination, and make decisions about how to get our spirituality shipshape and ready to go. This program is a 10-week program, and I have books available after service if some want to take a curriculum. But we probably don't even need the book because I'm going to be doing it on Zoom, and so you'll get the worksheets in advance, and you can do some of the work. And anybody can buy this book at the UUA bookstore, and you can do it on your own. But I want each of us this year, whether we take the specific 10 weeks of classes that I'm going to be offering on Zoom on Monday nights. Monday night not work for some people, but the work of building your own theology is necessary for everybody at some level. So here are some of the things that we'll be working on over these 10 weeks. And I want you to think about these questions today. And wow, there are many questions. And some of the questions you say, I don't care to answer that one. Some of them will say, oh, I already know the answer to that one. And other ones might sit you down even deeper in your chair and you'll say, wow, I need to work on that. And so listen to these questions and see which ones resonate with you. Which ones are you going to live with intention this coming year? In session 1, Gilbert introduces a liberal religious model. And at the center of Gilbert's model is the self. That no matter what realities lie beyond us, each of us begin with our own perceptions and experiences. Within ourselves, we have freedom, but it is limited. And inside our heads, it's only limited by our imaginations. We can believe anything we want. But of course, as soon as we encounter other people's realities, we have our own reality checked. And that further limits our freedom. And we must develop some sort of social ethic to survive. And we learn of the human history that's told by our tribe and contradicted by other tribes. And we have to figure out what is the reality in the midst of all of this. And then we have the mystery of ultimate reality. My first mentor as a young minister was a minister named Gretchen Woods, and she teaches a course that's called Systematic Ultimology. Because instead of theology, which it means the study of God, she likes to talk about the study of what is ultimate, which may include God. Gilbert takes the other thing and says we're going to talk about the study of God, which may also include anything that is ultimate. What is knowable? What stories can we believe in? What stories can we create? Gilbert writes, the final and critical dimension of this theological stance has to do with human meaning. The questions, why? So what? Continue to haunt us. What is the purpose of humankind? We are meaning makers. We are co-creators of meanings, values, convictions. And we live in a community of co-creators. Week 2 is about your religious odyssey. Psychologists and philosophers like Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell wrote about the hero's journey in a myth. Each of us is a hero in our own story. We have to leave our home, our childhood. We face obstacles. We may return home only to find that we have changed, or that home has changed, or possibly both. Or we might find a home within ourselves that's located anywhere in the world. By focusing and interpreting our odyssey, we can discover moments of meaning. By sharing our stories with others, we gain empathy for the common human experiences. And we may find that we are similar to the heroes of the world's religions. Krishna, Moses, Hercules. These people that are legends, but they have remained timeless with humanity because whether or not they're historically true, there's an intrinsic truth about what it means to be human contained in these stories. The third session talks about variety of religious experiences. First, what is a religious experience? It may be dramatic, like a burning bush or an epiphany where you see something glowing and you just know. On the contrary, there's a Bible verse that says, "Be still and know that I am God." When I was in junior high, I went to a Presbyterian church camp in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And there was a fire pit where we had fires. It was camp after a while. We had campfires every evening, and it was on Presbytery Point. But on the path of the woods out to there was just a sign in the middle of the woods that said, "Be still and know that I am God." And although they were trying to make me a good Presbyterian, that was probably the sign that made me a good Transcendentalist and found my home here in Unitarian Universalism. It may be a memory that you have, that you revisit and find a whole new meaning. Things happen to us in our childhood that we didn't understand at the time, but as we grow up, we realize, oh, our parents weren't gods. They were fallible, sometimes extremely fallible. And the reconciliation to that truth is a religious experience. Maybe creativity. A poem, a song, a painting, a sculpture. It may be gardening in harmony with the seasons. We have all had moments where we say, yes, this life is worthwhile. This life is precious. This life has meaning. Sometimes these moments are brief, and sometimes they last a lifetime. Session 4 is about human nature. What is human nature? Are we reflections of the image of God? Or are we a blank slate, a tabula rasa? Are we inherently good or evil? Or are those unhelpful constructs? Are we merely a species that does what it needs to do to survive? And if we have participated in the survival of the species, there's a whole lot of other life that we do beyond just creating offspring. And if we've never created offspring, we still have meaning. There's something about right now. It's not all about the future. As we look at the human condition, we are forced to find ourselves in the midst of something larger than ourselves. How do we choose to interact? What are our intentions? And do they matter? My mind goes in strange places from time to time. Have forgiveness and patience with my wife because she has to live with this all the time. In this moment, I'm reminded of a joke about an existentialist's grave. Sometimes it's listed as Jean-Paul Sartre, but any existentialist could be. They've been buried, and on their gravestone it says, all dressed up and no place to go. Session 5 is about ultimate reality, creating an honest God. I like how this curriculum, even though it's named Building Your Own Theology, does not get to God until the 5th week. I mean, God's mentioned, it's what the curriculum's about, but the focus doesn't become on God until the 5th session, because all that work about who we are and how we perceive is necessary before we even talk about what people have said about God. And in this chapter, there's nice worksheets where you can check off things that you believe and compare it to what Unitarian Universalists said they believed in 1967 and what they said in 1998. I think it's time for the UU to do another belief survey of our congregations, because it evolves. Because we are a faith that lives the question. And even if someone said, I believe in God in 1967, and they say, I believe in God in 1998, and they say, believe in God in 2022, their definition of God may have changed for each of those faith statements. I always think, when talking about God or the cosmos or the universe, that nouns are the least important thing. Throughout history, there's been many religions and philosophies, and they name what is ultimate. And I'm okay with whatever you call as ultimate. What I'm fascinated by are your adjectives for that noun. Is the universe chaotic or orderly? Is God chaotic or orderly? Is the universe nurturing or hostile? Is God nurturing or hostile? I think what we call the ultimate is less consequential than how we interact with the ultimate. What gives us hope and what causes fear. Session 6 is about history and taking an honest look backwards. This session looks back at famous Unitarians and Universalists and notes how this radical system of belief has affected this nation. Abolitionists, suffragettes, human rights activists have shaped our political life. Poets, novelists, and public intellectuals have shaped our inner life, our thoughts and emotions. We are the heroes of our own history, and we have heroes that we look to. But we also must confront the fact that historical figures who were liberal for their day may have still held beliefs that we disagree with. How should the past be remembered? What do we carry into the future? The 7th session is ethics as unenforceable obligations. And I love that term, ethics. Because it's like unenforceable obligations. Because there are laws. And we know that many of the laws in this country are written to the benefit of whoever donated the most to the last political campaign. So the laws, although they are legal and enforceable, aren't always ethical. It was once against the law for women to vote. Slavery was legal. Who gets to be an immigrant? The law has changed year after year after year, decade after decade. Ethics is that spirit of that law, that stuff that we hold ourselves accountable to, not because we fear reward or fear a punishment or hope for a reward, but that we have something inside of us that says this is what's right, no matter the consequences. Can we be good for goodness sake? Or is God just a cosmic Santa Claus that we have to better watch out? And if we're not believing in a heaven or hell, that calls us perhaps to be good for nothing. I've been called good for nothing. And I wear that as a badge of honor, because it's that I'm not trying to be good just to please somebody. I'm trying to be good because I'm trying to believe in a good and define it for myself and live it. And the only one who can enforce that is yourself. And we can often lie to ourselves big time. So it's a struggle. These ethics, these unenforceable obligations, these questions that we try to get at on how to live our lives. Session 8 is entitled, We Are Meaning Makers. Beyond making decisions in our day-to-day life, beyond reacting to ethical decisions of others, is there a moral to our story? What moral principles emerge? How do they guide us? What is the meaning of suffering? Was there a lesson learned, or was it just pointless? We are confronted by facts in our life. An event like a loved one's death. And it can take on different meanings depending on how we look at it. It's a fact that rioters stormed the Capitol a year ago. But this country is debating its meaning. How we interpret the facts of our lives may have more importance than the facts themselves, because we are witness to people who seem to create meaning with alternative facts, and their arguments are impervious to facts, because the human condition is such that we make meaning. You know, I watch Hallmark movies with my wife, and it's not all her idea. I kind of like the fantasy of them too, because there is that myth of romantic love where people fall in love forever. And they usually stop at the engagement and the kiss and the fireworks, and if it's Christmas time, the snow. Because reality is not as tidy as these romances. And I look at the many marriages that I have witnessed over 25 years of ministry, and I know ones that just don't work out. And I've seen happy ones that might be a second and third marriage for people, and they say, well, we enjoyed our starter marriage, but this one works. Because there's something in us that believes in love despite all the evidence that, in the words of Jay Giles, love stinks. And so, meanings are what we attach to our experiences. And they're important. I love the title of Session 9. So what? We've done all this thinking about what we believe and what our values are and decisions about how we're going to... But what does it mean? We hold these beliefs, we find these values. What does it call us to do? You know, what makes us, when we're watching the news, say, I'm just going to sit here and complain, oh my goodness, I have to call my senator on that one. Oh, I have to talk to my family member about this. There are a million causes, some good, some bad. We could all do more than we do. But sometimes when we hear something, it speaks to something deep inside of us. And it feels like a calling. It says, I can't sit still. There are some issues that say, oh, even though that's important, I don't feel confident or capable or even just have the energy to do it. I'm going to let someone else do it. But then some issues, and these issues might be, going to family therapy or doing something political or taking a meditation class, or there are things that call us and say, because this is my understanding of reality, I must do this. And that's what the so what is about. It's that sense of, how do we make it real? And we are a very thoughtful tradition, and I think there's a certain amount of intellectualism in Unitarian Universalism that says, well, since I've thought about it, now I'm done. But we're not done until we live it. And the 10th session is called Wrapping It Up, a Credo. Now, Unitarian Universalism is officially a religion without creeds. I mean, the name Unitarian means there is one God, and Jesus was a human sent by that God, but not God. That's the historical root. But we don't make anybody believe that there is one God. And if people believe that Jesus was that God, we don't kick them out. We say, gee, you're sounding a bit too Trinitarian for us. Because we have come to realize that saying, this is what you're supposed to believe, causes people to run or agree, if they actually agree with it, or lie. And spend every day that they're going to your church as a liar. That can't be a healthy spiritual way to be. And so the universalism means all are saved. In the traditional Christian meaning, that meant all are saved from hell. But we don't require anybody to believe in heaven or hell, or even the salvation through Jesus Christ that our universalist forebears believed in. We are a creedless tradition. That is why we can hold the symbols of Islam, earth-centered religion, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Taoism, Christianity, and Unitarian and Universalism on our wall. And we could fill all these walls with many more plaques that would still not touch all the things that people are allowed to believe here. We have these conversations, and we have a variety of services, not because we expect you to believe everything that's said in this pulpit by me or someone else, but by listening to others, we say, oh, I see how that works for them. It doesn't work for me. I know myself better, especially when I look into beliefs that I don't understand, or beliefs that sometimes make me angry. And all that conversation helps me make a personal creed. A personal creed is a credo. I'm not asking anybody else to believe it. I'm not trying to enforce it. I'm not trying to win a majority so we can have a club where everybody believes these words. It's being accountable to myself. In the academic world, there are research papers, and they often have an abstract at the top of the paper. And then you can look at that abstract and decide whether you want to read the rest of the article. But it basically is a summary. There's kind of a window that you peek in and say, is this paper worth reading? Is this someplace I want to go? And a credo is like that. It's a window into your faith. It's a place you can check. You can say, I told myself that this is what I believe. Am I living up to my standards? Am I being the best that I can imagine, or I'm at least striving towards that. And so the 10th session is about writing these personal credos and then sharing them with each other in the class. And depending on how brave the students are, some of them might make a worship service about their credo. And it's a sense of saying, here I stand. This is how I see things. And reflecting the question back to each of us, how do you see it? What work are you willing to do? Building your own theology is a exercise in focusing oneself. To remind oneself of those things you kind of know and you kind of believe, and say, well, wait a minute. I think I can say, instead of whatever, I could say, these things in particular have meaning for me. And then live by those. So after service, I'll be sitting by the food table because I know you all believe in food. And I'll be taking down names of people in your email so I can make sure I send you a link to the classes. And the link is also in the UU update. But regardless of whether you come and take this class, I hope that you've heard something today that said, my life is important and it's worth working on. It is entirely fruitful for me to work on building and living my theology. May we bless and be blessed.
Thank you, Reverend Shirley. That was very